This is the final project presentation for MSE608B, and this is studying the impact of conflict and stress on working students during the COVID-19 pandemic. As an introduction, we are currently in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic and it is impacting the way that everybody lives. We are researching stress management and conflict management methods through this pandemic, and our target audience is specifically students who go to work or who used to go to work but got laid off as a direct result of the pandemic. Case study 1, conflict management. We want to study the methods of conflict management for college students who either work now or got laid off as a result of COVID-19. In this case study, we're going to analyze how these students have been impacted by COVID-19 and what they are doing to help manage the conflict at hand. We had sent out an email survey to 30 students and received 17 responses in regards to the few questions related to our objectives. So objective 1, what are people who have either had their hours cut or have been laid off doing to avert financial situations at home? The first question we asked was, did the pandemic reduce or change your hours at all? And 70% of the people said yes. And then actually 47% of people responded saying that they were laid off. And so basically from our results, we see that most students had more free time than usual. More than half the students were learning new skills. And this is because students are trying to prepare for the future and get ahead of the game so that when they do apply to jobs, they'll have more skills and have more tools under the belt. And the other half of students were not able to be more productive than usual. And this may be due to the lack of motivation given the negative environment. With all this negativity going on, it's kind of hard to stay positive and keep on moving forward. And so objective 2, how are employees dealing with the limited interactions at work? So because 40% of people were laid off, this has to be looked at in a different method, right? So less than a fifth of students need to work on their on-site jobs, right? So only a fifth of people need to actually go there physically, and 40% of students are able to work from home. All of the students who were able to work from home were provided with the tools necessary to work from home. And basically this is showing that over half of the students show that they had dropped in productivity. So whether or not they had the tools, they still had the drops in productivity. And this may be a result of not having in-person contact with any coworkers, or it may just simply be because nobody's directly watching over them. So our recommendations for case study 1 are that if you have more free time, use it wisely. If you've been laid off, try to stay positive and keep on trying. And if you're still working, work hard to show that you're a good and worthy employee. Case study 2 is the study of methods of stress management at home. The overall scope of the study is to examine how stress has affected our individual daily lives and how it's impacted sleeping, eating, and physical fitness. This survey was sent out to 40 students. And so from the figure above, we can see that 65% of students are working remotely during the pandemic. So this is, once again, this is a separate batch of students that we surveyed, and 65% of 40 students work remote. And we wanted to study how these students' sleep cycle was affected, since proper sleep can lead to an overall better health, right? And so we asked the students, have you started sleeping during the daytime? And so we can see that 56% of people have actually started sleeping during the day. And this might be because of the fact that people are at home all the time, so it's harder to grasp like get a good sense of time. Usually when you're going to school and when you're going to work, it's easy to just say, oh, this is the morning time, I have to go to work, I'm going to go home and relax because it's the evening and everything's done. Because everything's done at home, people are actually getting a little bit more confused with their time frames and are actually starting to sleep more at home. So our recommendation is to stick to a sleep schedule, right? And that's really important because a regular sleep schedule can help regulate your health. Practicing a relaxing bedtime ritual is good because it can help you fall asleep. It's also important to evaluate your room and design your sleep environment to establish the conditions for your need of sleep. Objective 2, unhealthy eating habits being used as outlets of stress. We asked the students, how are your eating habits now? And 46.3% said it's slightly more than before, and then 17% of people said that it's excessively increased in eating. So that's over 50% of people have actually had an increase in appetite and have been eating worse as a result of the pandemic. And so our recommendation here is to be conscious of what you consume and try to stay within a 2,000 calorie limit and try to eat nutrient-rich foods. Our objective 3 for this was healthy methods for stress outlets and maintaining physical health. We asked students which of the following applies to your physical fitness, and we can see that many of the methods that people used to use to work out was actually group methods, right? So there's outdoor sports, martial arts, aerobics, Zumba, and dancing. So these are all activities you do with other people, and because of social distancing, people can no longer do that. Also, 45% of people said they used to work out at the gym, but they have been closed due to the pandemic. And so our recommendation is to stay healthy, and we gave some recommendations as to what workouts they can do. But yeah, the gist of this is just to stay healthy by working out a little bit every day. And this will reduce your stress and make you physically well. Our case study 3 is social impacts of COVID-19 on students who also work. So having to socially distance is perhaps one of the greatest social impacts due to the pandemic. And because students come from many different backgrounds, there are different social implications. Many students live at home with their parents, some live on their own, and so everybody's coming from different areas. And so one thing that's true is that there are definitely family pressures that people feel at home. So whether you work from home or not, your family wants the best for you, but there's also expectations. There's expectations of family obligations, chores, and maybe even attending family events. During the pandemic, because most people are forced to stay at home, these pressures have increased. We interviewed one of the students. His name was Mirza. He actually he doesn't live at home, but his family depends on him financially. So there's that extra pressure of him being dependent on financially, and he's stressed due to the fear of losing his job because of the high rates of unemployment. And then the next thing we asked was, do you feel comfortable, or sorry, objective 2, how the pandemic impacted students' academic life. So a lot of students clearly from this are not comfortable studying remote. Only 40% of people said they were comfortable studying remote. And so school structures have changed. Some students do not have access to laptops and we're dependent on libraries. There are reports that show that fewer than half of students are actually participating in class. And for those who do attend class, they don't necessarily have to pay attention, and there's no direct consequences of not paying attention. And so our recommendations for case 3 were to try to keep good relations with your family, especially if you live at home, and try to do your best in school and keep looking for available resources. There are even donation programs for those of low income. And so in conclusion, clearly the pandemic has impacted the world at a large scale. Millions of people have lost their jobs, and unfortunately, college and university students are no exception of this. Going through the pandemic, many societal norms have changed, and with it comes its own conflicts and stress. This is why we chose to study the methods of conflict management and stress management. And the pandemic has had a drastic influence on what we do and how we are behaving socially. It is important to stay mindful and have self-awareness, which will lead to the ability of being able to manage conflicts and stress properly. With all the negativity going around and all the bad news that's constantly surrounding us, it is important to stay positive and continue to try our best. Thank you.